I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to The Rough Draft Diaries. This week in The Rough Draft Diaries, we're meeting in a space that reminds me, actually, of another episode. One of the first episodes of The Rough Draft Diaries. In that episode, I met my interviewee in an office. It was right in the corner of the building, which just happened to be on the corner of an intersection. There were windows lining the walls so you could hear the cars and the buses from the street below. That's almost the same exact environment that I'm interviewing my guest for this week's episode of The Rough Draft Diaries. It's a guest who put on a very brave face for me, as today was her first day back in the office after the holidays.
Well, I am just back from vacation, had a great opportunity to spend time with family, and it's always wonderful to come back into the YWCA.
That's Lisa McDuffie.
McDuffie, and I am the president and CEO of the YWCA Northwest Ohio.
The YWCA offers many programs. As I learned very quickly, Lisa was able to name all of them right off the top of her head. But the YWCA wasn't actually nominated for the Rough Draft Diaries. Instead, it's a program that the YWCA took over from another organization. It's called Dialogue to Change.
It was actually founded and brought to this community by the late Reverend Karen Shepler back in 2013, along with an entourage of other pastors and community layfolk who got together and believed Toledo could use some sort of curriculum or standardized program on race relations.
Now, as per Reverend Karen Shepler's wishes before she passed away, the program was transferred to the YWCA in 2017. But the program remained the same, with the mission being held in its title. It's a dialogue.
So a dialogue is simply that. We're having a talk. There is no quote-unquote training. Each and every session is facilitated by a volunteer facilitator whose sole job really is to keep the conversation going. But it is really the people in the circle, or in the community as we call it, that really guide and shape what comes out.
And this dialogue can happen in two different formats. One would be a community event. Maybe it's held at a local library. There's 6 sessions. No more than 12 people and no fewer than 8 people would be at this community event. Another circumstance would be a business or a corporation would hire Dialogue to Change, and they would come in and share the same experiences with the employees. The first session begins fairly light. You might talk about how you got your name, what are your interests. But slowly as the sessions go on and you get deeper into the curriculum, the conversations may get deeper as well.
We begin to talk about terms and what it really means. So in other words, what is prejudice? What is discrimination? What is racism? What is institutionalized and structural racism? And we've found that even in the most sophisticated of atmospheres, the people in the room really don't have a working knowledge of what those definitions are. Because racism does not necessarily look like it looked like back in our grandparents' era. You're not walking around necessarily in a white cape with a white hood.
Again, we're in an office, so you'll have to excuse the phones for just a moment.
But you may sit at a board table and perpetuate the very nature of racism by not having a broader understanding of what the implications of the policies are for people of color.
Although acts of racism may look different than what it looked like years ago, Lisa mentioned individuals within our own community experience the same setbacks that others experience throughout the nation.
Even in Toledo, and no different than in many other cities, the way our education system is structured, African American children are suspended at higher rates. Women of color still are dying at rates disproportionate to Caucasian women as it relates to breast cancer. Infant mortality, why babies are dying at 8 or 9 times that of Caucasian babies, those are all examples of a root, deeper cause. And so part of what Dialogue to Change has the opportunity to do is begin to connect those dots and weave them together. Across almost every major system that is governed by this country, there are disparate statistics. And so that's what racism really looks like today, and that's why Dialogue to Change is extremely important.
I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.